question number 4 has come in here from Kay. Hi there, Kay. Thank you for being part of the amazing WiggyWam community and for sending in your question. Kay says, I currently have 1 buy-to-let and I'm considering buying another 2, but after reading about landlords' experiences online, I've kind of been put off. But before I pull the trigger to buy the next few properties, do you think house prices and mortgage rates will continue to fall? And if so, should I wait? Any advice would be appreciated. All right, okay, well, thanks for that question. Interesting that you're looking to go into the residential landlord market when a lot of landlords are now looking to come out, as you've highlighted in your question there. And I think that's being triggered by a number of different things, obviously increasing in number of legislation, bits and pieces that landlords have to handle on a daily basis, but also the swing in balance of power, if you like, more back towards the tenant, which I think has actually undermined the rental market quite significantly. Okay, so the Section 21 no-fault evictions, what I think were actually a very good piece of what's the word I'm looking for? Legislation, for want of a better word. I think it was a very good piece of administration, let's put it that way, between a tenant and a landlord, because it allowed flexibility in terms of landlords being able to gain possession of their property within a much shorter time period if tenants weren't, behaving themselves, or they were causing nuisance problems, or they weren't paying the rent on time. This tool was available to a landlord, and I think it kept the relationship on a fairly even keel. If the tenant behaved themselves, paid the rent on time, then there was no problems in terms of worrying about eviction, because ultimately a landlord wants to, keep a tenant in long term. That's the dream for most landlords. But unfortunately, with that now looking at being phased out, and then, more complications in terms of the eviction process as a whole, it is now causing problems where, unfortunately, what I'm seeing on a lot of these different online forums is that tenants are getting quite smart. They know how to play the law, shall we say. They know how to, put you in a difficult position as a landlord, where you go to evict them for non-payment of rent, and then ultimately you can't get them out because they know the law, and that if your gas safety certificate isn't up to date, for example, then the judge will throw the case out, and you'll then have to go through the cost of reapplying to go to court, all those sorts of things. That is obviously what's putting a lot of people off. Now, that doesn't mean to say that there's not opportunity where a lot of landlords are leaving the housing market, and I think we're now coming to a crunch point or if we're not there now, we certainly will be very soon. And that crunch point will come around from the overall pressure in the housing market, particularly with regard to rented accommodation and availability of it. Okay. Now, I think one of two things is going to happen. Either the government is going to start to get on board with looking after private sector landlords a lot better, as it has done over the course of the last maybe 20 years or so. And that will encourage a return of landlords to the marketplace to provide more accommodation. Okay, the second thing that might happen is that larger corporates, i.e. banks, will collect a bunch of properties, and notice I use the word collect there, draw into that inference whatever you want, but they will collect a bunch of properties, and then they will become the major landlords. Okay, now that is quite an interesting proposition. Will the law be more imbalanced in favor of corporates than it is the private individual? Who's to say? I'm not quite sure. But the one thing that you can do to protect yourself, Kate, well, there's a couple of things you can do to protect yourself if you're thinking about going in to become a landlord. Okay. And that centers around buying the property right, and then secondly, around employing a really good letting agent to look after your property. Okay. Now, what a lot of newbie landlords don't do is they don't take the time to go and interview all of the letting agents in their particular market. And this is something that we used to do with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of property investors, the length and breadth of the country. We would go in and interview every single letting agent within a chosen area. Okay. And the point of doing that is because we always found that there was one letting agent that stood out head and shoulders above everybody else. And they had the right knowledge and expertise to keep you on the right side of the law and more importantly, to handle problems when they came up with tenants, okay? And because inevitably these sort of things do happen. And that's not to say that all tenants are bad, they're really not, but sometimes there will be miscommunication, sometimes there will be clashes of interest, shall we say, other times there will be issues that a tenant wants addressing that aren't your responsibility perhaps, or that, you know, are maybe a little bit unreasonable, and those sorts of things need to be smoothed out and dealt with, and that's one of the skills of an amazing letting agent, okay? So the key point is find a really, really good letting agent. But the first point that I mentioned was coming back to actually buying the property right in the first place. And again, unfortunately, when a lot of newbies go into the marketplace to buy buy-to-let properties, they don't negotiate well enough in terms of the buying price of the property. Okay, now to give you an example of this, Kay, one of the worst things that I've seen is you get a newbie landlord who goes to an auction, for example, and they see a property they like. Because it's going to auction, they think they're going to get a bargain, so they bid away, and they end up paying more for the property, or the same as they would if they went to a local estate agent and bought it, off the estate agent, right? So let's say, for example, that property is £100,000 that the estate agent's asking for, right? So they go and pay £100,000 for the property. Then they go and spend 10, 15, 20, 30,000 pounds in terms of fees, and then doing a refurb on the property. So now their total investment, okay, is 120,000 in that property. But what's it actually worth? Well, it's still only worth £100,000 because, you know, that's what all the properties in the street are selling for, right? So now most landlords are then in the situation where they've overcapitalized on the purchase of the property, and it's going to take a long time to claw back that extra £20,000. Okay, now that causes you a bit of a headache, because most landlords will sit there and go, well, it's okay, I'll just wait for the market to go up, and that'll, you know, get me back my overinvestment in the property. And that's assuming that the market always goes up, which of course it doesn't, and the market can fall. So if the market value falls by 20%, you know, you've actually now overcapitalized by 40%. You know, you've got an extra overinvestment into the property, which is just not worth it. So if you then had to sell the property quickly for £80,000, you've lost 40. Do you see where I'm going with this? Okay, so I know that might seem like a bit of a hypothetical situation, Kay, but my question to you would be, is it not better to buy that £100,000 property for 80,000 or 75,000 or 70,000 in order to then, you know, spend the money on doing it up and then forcing the value of that property up in line with market expectations, because you bought a bit of a rundown property that needed doing up, and that is then worth more once you spent that extra money on it. And that then protects you, because what you're doing is you're building in a discount to the market value initially. So you're building in a buffer of protection so that if the property value does drop by 20%, it doesn't really matter, because, you know, you've already built that into your purchase of the property in the first place. So there was quite a bit that I've thrown at you here in this answer, Kay, and you might want to replay this video one or two times just to understand exactly what I'm trying to say to you here. But I do strongly recommend that you buy well, and that you get a good letting agent on board. If you're going to be a landlord and go forward and build your portfolio, buying well is number one key in property investment, because it just allows you so much more flexibility in terms of, you know, do you flip it on or do you then rent it out? And secondly, the right letting agent will keep you on the right side of the law. I did write a book about this a few years ago now, Kate, and it was called As Safe as Houses. There are one or two copies floating about on the internet. If that's something that appeals to you, grab yourself a copy of that, and that'll educate you a little bit more in terms of the background about buying and selling investment property, and help you to well, start and build and grow your portfolio as fast as possible. So hope that helps there, Kay. Thanks ever so much indeed for the question again, and good luck. If we can help you at all, please let us know. All right. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of today's webinar. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, as always. We're here the same time, same place every week, doing this, answering your property questions as much as we possibly can in the time that we have available. So you can send your questions through to us via email, which is happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. That's happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. You can also go to our website, which is wiggywam.co.uk. That's wiggywam.co.uk. You can set up a free profile on WiggyWam. You can access an entire catalogue now of blogs, broadcast, news articles, all sorts of things that can help you with your moving journey, including an entire video training suite put together by myself that will guide you through the entire process of finding, viewing, offering on, and buying your next property. Okay, that's an incredible amount of value that we've crammed into that video training suite there. You can also send your questions to us via Twitter. Twitter handle is @WiggyWam_UK. So that's @WiggyWam_UK. And we'll look forward to answering your questions on a future webinar very soon. And if there's anything else that we can do to help or support you in your moving journey, please do let us know. We're here to help. We're here to serve. We're here to do our very best to look after you in your moving journey. And we'll look forward to seeing you on a future webinar very soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me today, and bye for now.